Chapter 1. Wounded. The 4 Phases of Healing. In a world so torn apart by rivalry, anger, and hatred, we have the privileged vocation to be living signs of a love that can bridge all divisions and heal all wounds. Henry Nouwen. Years ago, my family went for a sunny day trip to Mount Baker, the volcanic peak just 60 miles from our home in northwestern Washington state. At almost 11,000 feet high, its glaciers glisten year-round. On that bright July day, a basin near the winter ski area was filled with snow. We couldn't wait to share summer sledding with my husband's family, who were visiting from North Carolina. Everyone took turns tumbling down the steep hill on a floppy plastic sled. Andrew, my husband, hopped on for the last ride of the day. We laughingly warned him to avoid the one stick popping up in the otherwise smooth, snowy meadow below. Somehow, Andrew careened straight into that stick. After hitting it, he flew up in the air with the sled and came down sprawling in the snow. As he sat up, I yelled to ask him if he was okay, and he waved. I took that as a signal that all was well, but then my young son started screaming. When I looked again, I saw blood and watched Andrew slowly slump to the ground. I slid down the hill as fast as I could. Going into doctor mode, I conducted a quick physical evaluation of his wounds. The stick had sliced across Andrew's forehead, skimming his glasses, then continued down the right side of his face, jaw, and neck. He had deep gashes across his face and neck, with flesh splayed out and blood soaking into the snow. Andrew lay, conscious and moaning, as I kneeled over him, grabbing snow, pushing the gaping wound edges together, and applying hard, cold pressure to his head wounds with both my hands. The stick had sliced Andrew's scalp and face open with the power of a strong, unyielding razor blade as he rotated around it. His glasses had saved his eyes. I wrapped his head in a turban of scarves, and then we gently carried him out of the basin, slow step by slow step, keeping him conscious and doing our best to stem the bleeding. Our 2-hour trip to the hospital involved a transfer from the first ambulance, which had a limited range of service, to a second one halfway down the mountain. The second rescue team looked at Andrew, his head snugly wrapped, and seemed to assume we were overreacting to a simple laceration. I was nervous but started second-guessing my own concerns. Once we reached the emergency room, I had to wash off the blood from my hands and clothes and change into hospital scrubs before being allowed into the emergency room. As I emerged from the hospital bathroom, I heard a trauma code being called. Confused, I realized my husband was no longer in sight. While I had been changing, the nurses had unwrapped his layered scarf bandage and quickly realized he had major lacerations with critical blood loss. They couldn't find a vein to start an IV, and his vital signs were unstable, so he was rushed to a trauma room. I found Andrew down the hall, surrounded by a code team who were frantically trying to stabilize his vital signs. Andrew's wounds went to the very edge of his carotid artery, narrowly missing it. Mercifully, his carotid vein also escaped injury. Many smaller vessels were sliced open, but they were not as critical. A central line inserted into the uninjured side of his neck delivered life-saving fluids. We were amazed at the power of that little stick, until a doctor explained that the snow is so deep in the basin areas that what look like sticks are actually the tops of large evergreens. Despite massive blood loss and a 3-hour surgery to repair layers of tissue, he would heal with only some faint facial scars to tell his story. Yet, during his recovery, he had to face an unseen injury that cut just as deep, if only figuratively. Just prior to the accident, Andrew had been told that his job was being eliminated due to abrupt changes in his firm's leadership. It was a hard loss for him and for our family, as he had previously been assured of rewards, including a future partnership, for his long hours of extra work. However, his employer did make an allowance for a several-month transition period and support through the summer. Partners we had come to know as friends promised to champion him in this difficult time.